everybody, it's Tony George. Welcome to Tony's Time, DocSports.com. You'll see that good-looking guy in the same color polo shirt that I have on today. We must have had a wardrobe gal get in touch with each other. Doug Upstone joins me here today. And Doug, I couldn't be more excited for you to join me here on a Tuesday as we are talking not NASCAR, not golf, not Korean baseball, not horse racing, but we're talking NBA. And the NBA and Adam Silver have come out with a plan down in Orlando at Disney World starting tentatively July 31st with around 22 teams. You called me up and broke this story to me actually on the telephone, and I was laying on the couch watching something else, and I was so excited. A little bit about the setup, Doug.
Yeah, Tony, this is great news, and basically what's happening, as you mentioned, 22 teams is how they selected it, and primarily what they did is they went along the lines of where the standings actually are. Most teams, are played 60-some games, and for the most part, things were configured. So they're taking 9 teams from the Eastern Conference and 13 from the West, and basically what it's going to come down to, you're going to play 8 games, get the situation squared away. And then for an 8-9, what they're going to do, if a team is within 4 games or less as the 9th seed, they will have a playoff series. And what that means is there would be 2 games potentially where the 9th seed would have to beat the 8th seed twice in order to make the field of 8 in their particular conference. So after that, it's pretty standard in terms of how the NBA has done it in the past, but it's an interesting little twist. And hey, we got basketball coming.
Yeah, and I think this thing from a handicapping perspective is going to offer a lot different dynamic than usual regular season NBA. And there's no fans, there's no travel. They're all stuck down at Disney World, in the resort hotels down there, all these teams. And I have a couple of questions I'm going to run by you, and I'll just get your honest answers here for the guys listening. We're going to talk about the odds in the Eastern and Western Conference, but first I wanted to ask you, I wonder from a point spread perspective, does this, especially in the underdog role, this is going to bring a lot of the also-rans into play. These guys are not going to be in mid to late season form. There's going to be teams, obviously, like the Bucks, Raptors, Celtics, and Heat, in the East that are going to be laying big numbers against the also-rans, and the Lakers, Clippers, Nuggets, Jazz, Rockets, for instance, going to be laying, 6 or more in a lot of these games. And I guess you got to ask yourself your question from a point spread perspective, does that bring the underdogs in? Because in my opinion, there should maybe be 6 or 7 teams in this thing total, because the rest of them are not going to sniff it. Now, I wonder from that perspective, if you want to bank on those underdogs and these teams are looking to get by in this scenario, whether these underdog teams or not. Damian Lillard has come out for the Blazers, really didn't want to do it because they don't have any chance of getting up there and playing in this thing. So maybe they throw in the towel early. There's going to be a lot of landmines to sidestep here, I think, especially early on with this format.
Yeah, from the standpoint, a couple interesting things. I talked to a couple of people that I know that are odds makers for various offshore websites, and then not just all recently, but even before. And I asked them, I said, what do you think is going to happen in terms of the odds? I said, because my thought was, because it's a neutral site, you're not let's just say the 2 to 3 point home court advantage is wiped out. And they were of the opinion that the odds will actually be pretty close to the same as if there was a home court advantage, which kind of surprised me, to be perfectly honest. Yeah. But, and looking at it, I think, for example, underdogs of 7 or more, I think will have an advantage. And the reason that I say that is even though, some teams, there's quite a separation in terms of talent, they have something to play for. All of these underdogs, that's why they were invited to be among the 22 teams. So they have a chance, all of them do, to make the playoffs. So I think they have that reasoning to want to play. The other aspect that comes into play, I think here in the first couple of games, is the teams that have greater depth, and 2 of the teams are 2 of the best teams, Milwaukee and the Clippers. As it goes on, I think it'll have more of an advantage. And then conversely, the teams that don't have much of a bench, for example, like Houston, them as favorites, I think they are in a little bit they are in a position, I think, of being at a disadvantage in that case. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting dynamics. And what, for example, what is your thought on totals? Trying to look at that.
I think out of the gate, they're probably going to be lower than what we were seeing. We were seeing a lot in the 230s and even 240s, as the season was rolling along there. I think you're going to see lower total numbers and lower scoring out of the gate, at least. And then these guys, even with 2 or 3 weeks practice, aren't going to be in game shape. So it's going to be interesting to see. That also equates into sloppy defense when you're not in game shape. So it could look like an all-star game. So I really don't know what to expect, but on the surface, it looks like the totals are going to be a lot lower than what we're seeing. I also think the odds makers are going to adjust those totals accordingly out of the gate. It's going to be real interesting to see the opening lines when this gets closer to mid to late July when the schedule comes out. And we're talking with Doug Upstone here, DocSports.com. Be sure and check out Doc's. A lot of stuff going on right now with the NASCAR, golf upcoming this weekend. We got UFC. We've got boxing here on a Tuesday night. Be sure and take advantage of that free $60 to get yourself hooked up. Korean baseball as well. So, folks, we're getting right back smack dab into the dog days of summer. And while Major League Baseball looks like it might be a bust, I don't know. We got other things upcoming all over there at Doc, so be sure and get over and check it out. Let's talk about the Eastern Conference here a little bit. We'll talk about the Eastern and Western Conference, and obviously the NBA Bucks, the Bucks in the NBA in the East. It's going to be a 2-horse race between them and Boston, in my opinion, Doug. And I was going to break those down for you. We've got Milwaukee at minus 180 to win the Eastern Conference, which I think is a really, really good bet right now. Boston sitting at, I had them around, I forgot where I had their number at, but they were plus 700 to win the East. So there's a huge disparaging number between Milwaukee being number 1 in offense, number 1 in rebound, number 5 in defense, number 4 in ATS against the spread team as well. 46-18 record. Their defense is unbelievable. Number 1 in field goal percentage allowed. As a matter of fact, they're plus 250 to win the whole thing, but minus 180. You could make an argument for Boston, Doug, but right now, if Milwaukee was to pick off where they left off, they're going to be an awfully tough out for anybody.
Yeah, it's just a matter of getting the continuity. And I like your point that you made before, because I think one of the things I think that's going to be very important early on, and typically as it is throughout the playoffs, is coaching. And I think one of the key things that coaches are going to do is they're not going to worry about offense, because I think that the continuity as the players play these 8 regular season, or the last of the 8 regular season games, I think that'll come. Now, what they're really going to be concerned about is getting their defense in order, and particularly for those that have a real chance to get to the conference finals. The Milwaukee Bucks are certainly, I'll run this by you, Tony, real quick. Actually, I got an article up at Docs that I put up on Monday about this. The last time a top 3 a team other than a top 3 seed since 1970 has won the championship, there's only been one since 1970, and that was the Houston Rockets in 1994, 1995. And that year, they were the defending champs. Hakeem Olajuwon was injured that year, as was Robert Horry, as was Vernon Maxwell. They brought in Clyde Drexler, and they caught fire late, and they went on to win the championship. So anything out of the top 3, maybe, this is 2020. So this is the craziest year pretty much any of us have lived. So maybe that'll happen again. But from a betting standpoint, I don't know how you can do it. Milwaukee, I think, is going to be a top team going forward. Boston is in there. I still think Toronto, though. Toronto, I think, has a mental edge over Milwaukee, even going back to last year. And even though I don't think they're quite as good by the regular season, they're actually having a better year this year than they did last. But when it comes down to it, I still agree with you. I think the Bucks are the team to beat.
Yeah, Toronto plus 800 and Miami, the Heat plus 850. And Miami was playing some good basketball when all this the coronavirus hit and shut everything down. But Boston, number 2 in defense. Boston also, you might want to watch them on the spread. They're the second best against the spread team in the NBA. And one thing Boston does have over, in my opinion, with Jason Tatum having a hell of a year, Hayward, Kemba Walker, Marcus Smart, they've got a pretty strong starting 5, but Boston definitely has, in my opinion, one of the best coaches in the NBA and definitely the best coach in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion. Let's switch gears to the West. And, this here, Doug, obviously a limited amount of teams in the Eastern Conference versus they added more teams in the Western Conference because this is a little bit of a Pandora's box, so to speak. Lakers, Clippers, Nuggets, Jazz, Thunder, Rockets. Right there, I wouldn't say it's a coin toss, but there's definitely some sleepers here with Denver, Utah, and Houston, although I think Houston's depth hurts them. They've got Harden and Westbrook up there. They don't play any defense, but at day's end here, the Los Angeles Lakers, as you see the graphic above me, to win the Western Conference right now, Doug, at plus 165, number 7 in offense, number 1 in field goal percentage from the floor, number 3 in defense, number 3 in ATS team in the league, and number 2 in rebounding, and with a bench with Kuzma and Rondo on there, obviously Davis and LeBron, and then you switch gears to the Lakers here, plus 190 to win the West. But Lakers, at least coming in here, Doug, odds-on favorite slightly to win the West. I think the West is going to be a very interesting watch. Probably going to garner more ratings than when the Eastern Conference games are on, when it's on television as well. There's a lot of these flip-flop games in this one, going all the way down to the Spurs, Kings, Pelicans, Blazers, Grizzlies, Mavericks. I mean, there's going to be a lot of tight games in this one.
Yes, I agree with you, Tony, 100% there. I think the 2 Los Angeles teams, they are the class of the West, and I think it will come down to that ultimately. But as you mentioned, Houston, I'm no fan. Not only do they, not have much depth, they also don't have any size. Because they traded away Capella. There's not a lot there. They just have to outscore everybody. And, just time and time again, that just it's not going to work out, especially to win multiple series. I don't see that at all. Denver, I think, is an interesting wild card. If they match up with the Clippers, and by the way, I say Denver, but they still have to hold on to the number 3 seed. I believe there's 3 or 4 teams within 3 games of Denver. So this is Denver's not a lock at number 3. So I think there's some interesting dynamics that get there. I'm not sure Utah, they lost their second leading scorer, so I'm not really sure where they're going to go. But at least it'll be a little more entertaining, like you said, in the West. But comes down to it. I mean, the Lakers, let's be honest, they got to win this year. I mean, it's as simple as that. Yeah. LeBron's 35, 17th year. He has still been phenomenal, and really strong case could be made for MVP. But, going forward, this next year, he'll be a year older. A couple of free agents will likely be gone. The dynamics of the team will be changed, even if Anthony Davis does come back. So I think this is their year to do that. Conversely, the Clippers, they are 12 deep. Okay. They have 3 superstars. Yep. This is a team that's going to be reckoned with. It is going to be phenomenal. I'm going to hold off on an opinion as to who's going to make it there, but I'm strongly convinced it'll be either the Lakers or the Clippers in the championship round. But boy, that's going to be something.
Yeah, the depth there. You take a look at Kawhi Leonard. You got Lou Williams, who's playing great ball. Paul George, Marcus Morris. I'm not big on Patrick Beverly. He's a starter for them, but he's averaging 7 points and 3 assists a game. But their bench, Harrell, Jackson, they've got a lot of depth there on that team. They're very well coached as well. Maybe better coached than the Lakers in some respects. But you take a look at that. You got the Clippers 5.5 games behind the Lakers. Denver, these are games behind the Lakers right now. 5.5 games for the Clippers. Denver 7, Utah 8.5, Oklahoma City, Houston, Oklahoma City and Houston both 9.5 games out, and then Dallas 11 games back. I think it's a 2-horse race, but I think both sleepers, Toronto in the West, or in the East, and Denver in the West. You better keep your eye on, because we're not rolling along like we were, folks, in the regular season, and we're just picking up where we left off. There's a lot of intangibles and things that you need to consider. But I will tell you one thing, laying huge numbers out of the gate in the NBA is going to be death to Smoochie if you try it, at least out of the gate. It's going to be interesting to see how those totals land, Doug, out of the gate the first 3 or 4 games, and then odds makers will adjust, and us as handicappers will adjust accordingly as well.
Yeah, and to your point, there's one other aspect that people should know is that, look at one more point. Look at teams that have done well on the road, especially against the spread. We're looking at Oklahoma City, Dallas, Boston, and even Sacramento. Now, Sacramento's likely only to play 8 games and be done, but all of those teams have among the best road records that there is in the NBA. So they know how, and every game is going to be a road game. So if you know how to play, that's a big upside. And the other aspect to that, and we've been out of basketball for so long, Philadelphia was one of the best home teams, and against the spread, they were 11, 22, and 1 on the road. Philadelphia 76ers. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting scenario for everybody involved. But folks, we have NBA going on. We're going to have some hockey going on here in NHL in the very near future. NASCAR is hot and heavy. Be sure and tune into the NASCAR show here on Tuesdays. We'll be up here right here on this page. I know Doug's giving out free plays daily on his YouTube page. All the handicappers that are doing free video plays for the most part are doing them daily. I'm doing them on the weekends and in midweek for NASCAR, but nonetheless, a plethora of information and a free $60 from Docs if you've never been a member. Put that to use and get ready for some basketball. And Doug, quickly, before we let everybody go, I know that you are, like myself, you're a huge golf fan, a golfer. And matter of fact, I got in 18 yesterday in the 30-mile-an-hour wind out here in Las Vegas over at Palm Valley with my buddies. But nonetheless, quickly this weekend, if you want to utilize that free $60 we're giving you, we do have Colonial going on. The PGA kicks off this week on Thursday there's various ways you can wager that. I pretty much stick head-to-head, golfer against golfer, who has the better round on the money line. And those will be up Thursday at Docs. And I know you'll have some golf out, Doug.
Yes, I will. In fact, I for the Docs newsletter, I just put out. There will be a release on a head-to-head tournament matchup. I don't do the head-to-head day by day. I stick more towards the tournaments, and I also like to do top 5 and top 10 finishes for those, just to get a little more flavor of what's going on, and you can hone in on some different aspects of how people play, how that relates to the course that they're playing on, their past history. And so that's kind of more my niche in terms of the golf. But Tony, I am so excited. I started the year winning 6 of the first 8 weeks, 75%. And you know what? I'll get a week or two going here, get these guys back into a rhythm. I think it's going to be a great rest of the year for both me and you for the rest of the golf season.
Yeah. Well, I'm giving you that silent little golf clap there. Just barely, just silent little golf clap. Now be sure to get over to Docs this weekend, check everything out. We'll be back up with some NBA with Doug once some of the opening game lines come out, and there'll be some look-ahead lines once the schedule come out. We'll be sure and do a Tony's Time on that. Until then, folks, get over to Docs, get yourself some winners, and take advantage of that free $60. And until next time, thanks for tuning in.